I think they come on thinking it's going to be serious, and then we'll crack a joke about eating ass, and then everybody just takes it down.
Flex Lewis here, straight out the lair. My next guest is a friend of 15 years, a man that has seen the Mr. Olympia stage and a few pro wins. His transition from stage to businessman to owner of Hostile Supplements and now the host of bodybuilding's biggest podcast, Broad Chat. Here's a podcast with Fouad, Horse, Abiad. We are live.
I didn't know you were waiting for me.
Actually, I played you into that trick, mate. I played you in. False sense of fucking security. He's chilling out. He's checking all his fucking multi-million-dollar deals that are going through his phone.
Not yet, but coming. They're coming.
They're coming. Good for you, bro. On that note, mate, fucking killing it. Hostile as boof.
Can I ask you something? Because you're an extremely successful individual.
Oh, thank you.
Do you ever feel like you're killing it, though?
You shouldn't. I mean, why? No.
I'm serious. Do you ever feel like when you look around the gym?
Yeah.
It's a beautiful gym. You got a million people here. Everybody's coming to see you. You have all these Olympias on the wall, and you know you've been successful. But do you ever feel like you're killing it, or do you always feel like there's still so much more to do?
Wow, we're going deep. And by the way, this is my fucking podcast. Stop asking me. This is the first. We've just broke the ice on it. Let me ask you a question, Flex.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yo.
I'll stop.
You were in the hot chair, okay? This is my sofa.
I don't know how to do that.
No, you don't. This is a bad start for you.
Okay.
But sorry. I will answer your question.
Okay.
Straight on their podcast, Fouad, Abiad, just interviewing myself, yeah. No, it's a weird one, to be honest. I think any driven and successful person will always see what they want to see from that situation, right? And that could be, you just said about the gym. I'm looking at these cameras now that are behind you, and the gym is like somebody's kicked an ant's nest.
Yeah.
And there's movement everywhere, and I can see that all the way from over here. But when you say killing it, right? There's so many different levels, and I'll find our level. Be like, how can we get better at this?
That's right.
Right. We did prepare. We had a lot of Olympia meetings prior to this week, so we prepared for the worst. And as you can see, I've got 4 or 5 staff members out there at the front desk. Yeah. Every one of them guys can speak. Well, it's like 3 different languages that can be spoken to up there. You know, we've had international people coming in. I think that right there, the first moment you come through the door and you have somebody that can actually translate or speak your native tongue, helps significantly, because we've both been on the road and we were like, oh Jesus, you know, where's McDonald's? Oh, well, that's universal, right? But yeah, to your point, why do you think that you are not killing it?
Well, you know, I'm proud of what we've done. So let me say that first. But people are constantly coming up to me going, man, the brand has grown so fast and you're doing so well and the podcast is huge. And it's kind of like bodybuilding. I don't know if you're like me, but when I was bodybuilding, no matter what I looked at, I could always pick out the things I wanted to be better. And it was very hard for me to see the things that I liked. So I feel like it's, I told myself after bodybuilding, I would change my perspective on how I viewed life and how I went through life and went through challenges. And it turns out I'm doing the same thing in business that I did in bodybuilding. I see the thing and I'm proud of it, but I always see how much more there is to do instead of actually just sitting back and being thankful for where I am.
Well, let me ask you this then. Was that there before bodybuilding, or do you think bodybuilding taught you that tool to become what you are today?
You mean being extra hard on myself?
And also seeing that something should be better, or you can get more or something. Even if you achieved what you went after, you're looking back saying, man, that could have been done better. Or can you actually sit in the moment and go, okay, yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy with that came out of, or whatever scenario would be.
I think anything in my life that I actually cared about, because, you know, there's a lot of things we do in life, but there's certain things you're extremely passionate about. When it comes to bodybuilding, or it comes to Hostile, or it comes to the podcast, I'm very passionate about the way it looks and how successful it is, and that the point of the whole thing is getting across to people. If there's anything I can do to make it better, it's almost like I can only see that.
Got you.
I can't see. I have a harder time patting myself on the back, put it that way. Right? So when someone comes up to me and says, "Oh, you're killing it," I've never been good at taking compliments.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It doesn't register for me the same way other people see it.
I understand that part.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's tough to take compliments when you're extremely driven and you're extremely hard on yourself, because you either come through something and you're like, that could have been better, and then you feel you get a compliment from somebody saying like, "Oh, that was done amazingly." It's like, you don't want to burst the bubble and change the aura of how the message is delivered. It's like, thank you very much, and I kind of move off the subject.
Yeah. There are small victories though, so I don't want people to get the wrong idea. There are small victories. Like this weekend, we have the Olympia. It's our first Olympia at Hostile, and we have the booth and we have the podcast booth set up there. And I walk in there and I see it being set up.
Great feeling.
There's a small victory there. So it's almost exactly like bodybuilding, because in bodybuilding there's a number of small victories on the way to your larger goals. So there are times where like I'll pat myself on the back for a small thing, or I'll take a moment and go, "Wow, you know what? This came from nothing." Or like the podcast, for example, when I get messages from people and they're like, "I was depressed and your podcast cheered me up." That I'll take a minute and go, "You know what? That's really cool that happened." But then there's the overarching scope, which is the one where I always feel like I'm not where I want to be.
Yeah. But do you think that's also a trait of being successful?
I don't know, because when you say it that way, that sounds like a positive. But when I feel it, it feels negative.
Well,
do you understand what I'm saying? Because when someone says a driven individual is never satisfied, that sounds like a positive quote. But when I'm feeling it in my head, I'm like, why can't I be fucking satisfied?
Yeah, I think that's like a never-ending answer, right? Such a deep answer that you can never answer yourself. You can have a lot of great people around you that maybe would celebrate better than you.
Yeah.
And when I'm saying this, I have incredible staff that are here this weekend, and they've kind of cheered every single day, like, "Wow, that was a great day, great job." And obviously, like you said, the overarching, great job. I'm so proud of you guys.
Sure.
But they are kind of celebrating more than I am, because I'm more like, "Wow, we got 4 more days to go." Don't be cheering yet. Yes, as you said, the small wins.
Yeah.
But I'm like looking at it from step back, and I'm like, guys, we got a couple of games left. I always remember Kobe talking. They were like in a press conference, like, "Why aren't you happy?" He's like, "We've won 1 game."
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, what's there to celebrate?
Well, it's kind of the same, because I see the booth and I'm happy that it's there.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, I'm like, the weekend hasn't even started yet. What if the audio doesn't sound right? What if the podcast conversations don't go well? There's all these things, just these moving parts, right? Because it's not a normal booth where just people come up and shake your hands and take a photo. We have a lot of electronics and a lot of things going into the booth that I don't think somebody's ever done at an expo.
Well, I do know that world, because Doug, my best friend, builds all the expo booths, and he's done a lot of Olympia booths of old, mainly in Outta The Sport. But that's a massive feat in itself, mate. The fact that you now have not only Hostel there, but you also be firing out the podcast from the actual booth is a massive undertaking.
Yeah.
And I think what's happening is you're confusing your feelings of being nervous as it's such a joyous and huge occasion, and you're marrying all these elements of first time, right?
Yeah.
There.
Yeah.
But don't, as your boy, don't let this, overshadow the fact that there's a massive milestone that's taking part here.
No, I haven't. And I know that, look, there's a lot of supplement companies that start and disappear. And I'm very proud of the fact that we've started, and it's only been 2 years, and we're very popular in the bodybuilding space, and people have really accepted our message, and we kind of brought things back to their roots, right? Because a lot of companies are like, well, there's more people in the mainstream, and I'm like, no, we're bodybuilding based. So I'm proud that we've stuck to who we are, and like I said, I don't want to make it sound negative. I'm very proud of everything that we're doing. Yeah. But there's, like you said, there's always more. And I find myself more focused on that sometimes than I should be. So that's that's kind of where I'm at right now. But I'm definitely proud and excited for this weekend.
Yeah.
To meet people, and we're doing something different at the booth too. This isn't, you have a podcast. You understand that people that sit here are usually leaders in their industry or on that level of some sort. We're going to be podcasting with fans.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's the difference this year.
Yeah,
fucking great element.
So we're gonna have a line.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a line. People are gonna come in.
Fans already arrived. They're saying. No. Where are you? The fucking booth's open.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Fans have come in because this is what happens. We've done a couple live podcasts, and fans come up and they tell us their stories. Some of them are really touching. Like I've had probably 3 grown men cry in front of me because we helped them get through a family member passing or something. And I thought, you know what? If we do the booth and people have 5 or 10 minutes to come in and shoot the shit, have a laugh, tell us their serious stories, it makes them feel like part of it.
Yeah.
So I thought this will be a weekend where it's more for the fans than it is for to bring in celebrities to talk and stuff. So it's more for them this weekend.
It's a great concept.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's a little tough because I don't know how long I'm going to have with each fan. But at least they'll come in, have a laugh.
Yeah.
Even if it's 5-10 minutes, and then we'll go to the next person.
But you're good at directing traffic. I've seen you on the podcast when it's fucking madness. Everybody's trying to speak and you're like the captain of the ship. All right, guys, okay, listen. And then you're like dividing the Zooms up. It's like, calm the fuck down now. Guy, breathe, guy.
It's always guy.
Guy, yeah, well, I've seen some podcasts where it's fucking manic. But, you'll be able to know what is golden.
Yeah.
And what isn't. You'll get a fan that comes on and he's probably going to ramble. And you get a fan that comes on that's going to say something like, wow. And you're just like,
yeah.
I think that's amazing. And it's all from sitting in Canada with a pair of headphones on your head, talking in a mic to your boys.
Yeah. And
you're talking about real, relatable stuff that everybody goes through. Yeah. Nobody, regardless of status, regardless of paycheck, everybody puts on their fucking pants, the same way. Well, and everybody's got emotions, and everybody goes through real life shit, whether they want to talk about it or not. Because a lot of people, and I find this in a lot of the friends I have in sports that have a lot of media, it's like their PR teams don't want them to be weak.
Yeah.
It's like, don't talk about this. But then you've got, you get around a real good PR team that has really helped somebody blow up. And they were like, no, talk about stuff. Be relatable. Don't be like the stone.
Yeah.
Be the stone that bleeds and be like, hey, you are a motivational person. You've gone through this. People, it's all in how you speak. And again, you have done a great job over the last couple of years of taking this podcast into where it is now, a fucking standalone, podcast. And I've said this many times, even on my podcast, it's like you're the king of that world.
Thank you.
Of podcasts and again, taking the concept into where it is and getting guys that or would have been, I'm looking at these magazines that you and I first started in.
Yeah.
We weren't allowed to talk about this shit.
No.
Now you've given the guys a platform to be like, hey, how are you feeling after the show?
Well, I mean, that was the whole point of it, right? And I think some people now that watch it now maybe didn't watch in the beginning. One of the things that frustrates me about the show is people think it was a money-making endeavor, or it was for hostile, like, oh, this will help him sell supplements. Now, look, I'm not going to lie. Is there money to be made on YouTube? Yes. Is there a good connection with the company, and does it give the company more exposure? Of course. But that was by accident.
Yeah.
And the main purpose of the show was, and I was telling Tyrus this yesterday, the main purpose of the show was to give people a chance to get to know who the guys are.
Yes.
Because through the magazines and through Instagram, you don't get substance. You get highlights.
That's it.
And I thought, if I get this guy on for an hour, he's bound to tell me something I've never heard before. So I started doing long form, and my whole purpose was to get people to know the bodybuilders so they could be like, hey, these guys aren't just lifting weights and eating chicken. They actually have personalities. They actually have struggles. They have families. They've gone through shit in their childhoods. And that was the purpose. And I think that's actually has brought people closer to bodybuilding, because they're like, hey, this guy's just like me. He's just massive.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I actually spoke to a girl doing a figure podcast. She started one yesterday. She started one, and I talked to her. I met her yesterday. She said, I love your podcast. We're starting out. We're really small. We're trying to get some traction. And we talk about figure and how to grow figure. And I'm like, that's your problem. And she goes, why? And I said, don't talk about figure.
Yeah.
Talk about the girls. Talk about who they are.
Yeah.
Talk about where they came from. Nobody watching your show is going to be a figure pro.
No.
They may want to be. They may be good amateurs, but only a handful are going to become pros.
Yeah.
If you want people to watch, you got to get people that want to know who you are. They're going to be attracted to the personalities, not the physiques.
I'd also say don't stay in figure too.
Yeah.
Go across the board.
Well, that's something I kind of like that you're doing. It's something I wanted to do, but I've never really been able to figure out how to do it comfortably. Is you've kind of branched out and you got fighters on here sometimes, and I notice different personalities, and I think that's really cool that you're opening it up to more than just bodybuilding. So,
well, what I want on this podcast, mate, I looked at what you've done, and I don't. Whatever we do, there's going to be an overlap, right?
Yeah, of course.
And I don't want any type of comparison. And it goes back to the conversation earlier about I don't want any comparison, and I don't think there would be ever, because you do it your style, you're doing it, with your guys, and it's, it has so many different, levels, right? There's this serious conversation, and then there's a jovial conversation, and then there's whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And because it's long form, you'll probably put the click-based topic that is going to bring people in. But then when you watch it, it's like, and I've watched many, what I'll do is I'll put it on the background, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I'll listen to it, and I know everybody personally, right?
Yeah.
And everybody's just being themselves.
That's right.
And it's crazy to see some of these guys on their own, because they go back into their brand, into their snail shell.
Yeah, yeah.
But then when they're on your podcast, they're not thinking that there's 100,000 people going to be watching this.
Yeah.
Plus, they're thinking they're talking to their boy. They're talking to, and maybe the first time they come on, because I know you've had some interchangeable guests that come on, they realize before, again, this has been running for a long time, but they kind of get their feet wet, and then the next time it's like, oh fuck, you're a funny fucker, you dirty bastard.
I think they come on thinking it's going to be serious, and then we'll crack a joke about eating ass, and everybody just takes it down. And I try and make it, even if I have a one-on-one interview with somebody.
Yeah,
I'll try and lighten the mood.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because everybody, if you've ever watched the one-on-ones, the first half an hour is always more tense than the second half an hour.
Yeah.
Because as somebody relaxes, as you throw in a couple jokes, the guard starts to come down and they start to open up about other things.
I wouldn't fucking shut up on y'all.
No,
fuck, we done. We fucking ended. Then we fucking continued.
You know what I like about what you said though, going back to what you said about it not having overlap and not being the same.
Yeah. I do want to finish on that too.
So I just wanted to mention. So there's so many podcasts now, but the one thing I notice is, even though there's a lot of podcasts, you're always going to get a different flair out of each one because everybody has a different perspective on bodybuilding. So your perspective is from the very top, right? You won 7 Olympias. You see things differently than I see things. My perspective is somebody that struggled to get to where he was and didn't reach the very, very top. So I have my own perspective on bodybuilding. You have a perspective. Nick Dragili's doing podcasts. He did a couple shows and then retired for whatever reason. He's got his own perspective, right? So everybody that's done it now, like Muscle and Fitness has got a thing and they got a judge on there. So the judge has his perspective.
Yeah.
So like everybody has a show and they have a different perspective as to what bodybuilding is.
Yeah.
So you get a little bit of a different flair out of each one. And especially if you're talking to somebody, you're going to have different questions than I have, and you're going to have a different relatability than I have because you've been at a different place than I have. So it's almost...
Yeah, it's true.
It's almost okay that because everybody's coming at it from a different perspective, right? And even if you throw in like the Nick Strength and Powers or these guys, they weren't even pros. Nick Strength and Power was never a pro bodybuilder, so he's got his own.
That's true,
right? So
and he's done it incredibly well with his style of. As I'm cracking over, opening a monster drink here for the guys on Spotify. My apologies. And Fouad's got people running around him. My wife is trying to sneak in behind. By the way, you're in shot. By the way, babe. I'm joking. She's not in shot. I know. I'm just messing around. Nobody comes here or do it in my podcast. By the way, so I'll let my wife slide.
It's okay.
It would transition back into the house.
It's more relaxed that way. Just people coming and going.
Well, that'll be the end of it, I hope.
Yeah.
But no, you're totally right. You know, and I forgot about that. You know, Nick Strength and Power is one of them guys that have done an incredible job of putting together storylines, right, over the last couple of years. And prior to that, there was really it was like a hodgepodge of different things. And there's, for me, I love the professionalism that people bring to the table if they're going to do something, right? If you're going to start a podcast up right now, and that's one of the reasons why I didn't do anything for the longest time. One, I didn't do podcasts at all in my career. And when I say that, in the bigger scheme of things, I'd done maybe 3 a year, you know?
Yeah.
And that was more...
it took me like a year to get you on mine. You had to lose a bet to come on mine.
It started 6 months. Now it's gone to a fucking year.
But you had to lose a bet.
Yeah, you want to tell them about that?
Wasn't it the Conor McGregor fight?
Yeah, fucking
I bet on Diaz.
You did. And as you can see behind you, Conor's my guy. Like.
You still didn't pay up, though, for like 5 months after that.
No.
Yeah, you lost the bet, and then you paid up for it like 6 months later.
I felt I came hard. Oh, Jesus Christ, that's the fucking line that's going to be... when I can't even say the word came now.
I know.
When I finally arrived on your podcast, thank you for helping me. I could tell you're like a professional in your world. Anybody else would have just made me fucking say that word again.
Through it.
Yeah. When I finally showed up on your podcast, I felt I had to be like, fuck, I'm guilted here, because to Fouad's point, what he didn't say was the first bet we had. And this came out of nowhere because we were talking about MMA. Myself and Fouad are big MMA fans. We love it.
I'm not as big a fan as you are, but
you do love it.
But I like watching it. Yes.
So we go back and forth, and one of the fights we're talking about, he said to me, because everybody was on corner.
Yeah.
Fouad said, "I'm going to go against the grain. I think it was on Instagram or something, right, or whatever. I'm going to go against the grain if Diaz loses. If Conor loses to Diaz.
Yeah.
Was it Diaz or was it Poirier?
No, it was Conor. It was Conor Diaz.
Okay.
That was that long ago.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I said I would go on the podcast.
Yeah. And because you were certain your boy was going to win.
I still certain he would win. I still got that confidence. I thought he should have won.
No.
I know.
Choked out.
Yeah. Hey, this is my podcast.
Okay, sorry.
And then I didn't do it, did I? And I don't know why. Because it wasn't the fact that I didn't want to do it, and I know.
I never got mad at you. You're not an interview guy. You don't. Actually, I never get mad at anybody. I offer them if they don't want to come on, they don't come on.
Yeah. But, as you should do. But in the story as it goes, and in credit to you, 6 months later, I think Conor was fighting again, and I was like, "Oh shit, I did." So you said, "You know what, double or quits or whatever it was." I was going to come on the podcast anyway, because at that point in time I was guilty, but I still played into it. Yeah. So I said, "Okay, if Conor wins, it's even Stevens. I won't go on." And then you were like, "Okay, but what if he loses? That means you're coming on and what?" So
he lost the second one.
Well, obviously, I went on your fucking podcast.
No, but he won the second one. But I think he lost the second one. The second one was a decision. Remember?
Was the second one Poirier?
No, the second one was the second Diaz fight.
I am fighting this really hard, by the way, because I'm positive it was a lot.
It wasn't Poirier. It wasn't that. It was further back.
Wow, that's really disappointing.
Yeah. It's been a while.
That's bad.
But we did a podcast and turned out really well.
We did a podcast, and it was a fucking great podcast.
It got a ton of views. People were happy to see you.
It was great, and I think I read the comments. It was a lot of fucking comments. A lot of people said that at that point in time, I'm going to say the good comments. People said that was the best podcast you've ever done.
They say that every time.
They do. I know. I fucking read the comments.
No, but anytime somebody comes on that doesn't do a lot of interviews, like Cedric at the time.
Oh, okay.
God bless him.
R.I.P.
Cedric at the time was boycotting all media for like a few years. He just didn't, because Cedric had a thing where he was offended by media because people would be his best friend when he was doing well, and they weren't when he was doing poorly.
That's the sport, man.
I don't know if it was as personal as he made it, but I did understand his philosophy and thought process about it. So he just didn't want to do any.
Got you.
But me and him were friends from working at SciTech together for so long, so he decided to come on. And people loved it because it's anytime somebody comes on that doesn't do a lot of talking, it's always nice to hear from them, right?
Yeah.
So that's the same thing as you. You don't do very many interviews, and when you do, they're in the magazine usually, and you don't get to hear a lot. So I think that's why it went so well.
But this is a testimony to you, mate. There's a reason why I done your podcast, right? Because I knew it was going to be, it would have, again, it's so redundant here, but it would have a lot of levels to it, right? We spoke about a lot of different topics, and topics that I wouldn't talk to other people on, you know? You do a great job of pulling things out of people without knowing. And I think that's a good interviewer, because when you're talking to somebody and things are happening, emotions are happening, you've said already that people cry and stuff like that on your podcast. That means to say that, you're doing a good job, because you're not going to be getting somebody on the podcast and you're like, I'm going to get that person to cry today because this has just happened to them. But that's my point, right? Yeah. You could be talking about something and you find yourself talking into a scenario where it's like, oh, wow, I didn't know about this. Tell me about this.
There's so many like that.
I know.
There's so many. There was one. The one that always stands out in my mind is Branch. I had Branch Warren on, and I've always looked up to Branch. Like,
incredible.
Just because, he's my generation's hardworking guy, right?
Still,
so,
same for me, man.
Yeah, so I always looked up to Branch. So when he came on and we started talking about his past, and he started telling me about his parents being divorced, and he started telling me about living in his car and his mom, trying to make ends meet. And I'm like, Jesus, this guy.
I know.
Like, I've had no idea.
No, I interviewed him yesterday.
Yeah. Like, these kind of stories come out. Or even Cedric, when he was on, told me about a firefight that they had to go help clean up after, and he was telling me some of the stories about that. It's like these little stories come out, and you're like, man, I'm I think part of the reason why the show is successful is I feel like I'm one of the viewers. I come at it like I'm genuinely interested to know what's going on. Like, how did you get here, right? So the questions that come out, I don't write anything down. I don't script anything. I don't.
Know me, yeah.
I'm just curious to know who these guys are, and how they got to where they are and all that. And so, I don't know. It's good. It works out. It's good.
Yeah, man. We had a great podcast, and we talked about a lot of different subjects, and then we continued to talk about a lot of subjects after the fucking mic was turned off. And
we had to turn the mic back on.
And we turned the mic back on. I was like, I'm for Flex. Flex, this is a pod. You want to keep on recording? All right, guys, we're back. Flex had a lot more to say, and I think we fucking cracked out another 30 minutes. Whatever it was. It was a long-winded podcast, but I think that, again, that just goes to show, because most of the time when I do these podcasts, I'm kind of like,
waiting for it to.
I'm like looking at my phone.
Yeah. And
then at the end of the day, I'm kind of the end of that. I get that feeling where I'm like, respectfully, I would be like, it's been great to speak to you guys.
Yeah,
the cliche.
Yeah.
Hey, it's been great.
Yeah.
But anyway, you are obviously here now in Vegas. How many athletes you have at the Olympia this year?
We have 3 competing.
Right.
We have Neil Curry in Classic. We have Dean in 212, and we have Samson in the Open.
Oh, that's right.
So, I want to see our athletes all do well, but that's not kind of how our team's built, right? I think some companies go out and they get athletes that are going to win, and that's their main objective, right? And people would say, I did that with Nick, but Nick was also a friend who was part of the podcast for a year, so that was part of the reason, right? These guys, I hope they all crush it. I hope Samson shocks everybody. I hope he's in the top 5. I hope Neil comes in and blows the doors off it. Like, I hope Dean can show up and shock the 212 class and make a name for himself. But that's not what the company's about. The company's about struggle, and the company is who I am. And I signed Samson 3 years ago, or 2.5 years ago, when he was still trying to qualify for the Olympia. And now people see him as being a threat to the top 10 or top 5 and
future.
Yeah, the future. And I like that. I like guys who just are gritty, who are like, you know what? I'm not the greatest. I want to be the greatest, and I'm willing to put in the time and effort. And I feel like those guys have a lot of substance and a lot of soul. And I relate to them very well. So the team is built on that struggle. And all of them from Justin Shire to Nate Epler to all these guys that I've signed that are going to be here this weekend, they all have that grit. Mm-hmm. And people ask me all the time, like, what do you want from somebody to sponsor them? And I'm like, it's not one thing. Mm-hmm. There's a bunch of things, but they have to have that grit. They have to have that, like, overcome adversity kind of attitude, right?
I call it poor man's mentality.
Yes.
Because think about the poorest you've ever been in your life, and I've been there, and think of everything you were willing to do to get out of that rut and also just fucking grind. I think a lot of people that hit the top, I know this because I've been around again these athletes, and now I can call some of these guys my friend, and I've been there when they were on the climb, and then I've been around them when they've got that belt.
Yeah.
I'll say MMA, right?
Yeah.
If you're not waking up in the morning and you're doing a 5-mile run or something of that nature, or you're rolling over with a hangover because you had a free table at fucking Access, and you had all the girls and everything else, you have to sit down and analyze what the fuck is going on. Yeah. This is why I tell these young guys that are coming up the ranks, right? They had no attention, though they got attention. So the DMs are full of these fucking, these bikini girls.
Yeah.
And they're succumbing to distraction. And they're not even at the top yet. So imagine what will happen when they get that gold.
I know.
It's I was able to do this and get to here, so I'll continue on. It's kind of like John Jones mentality, right?
Yeah.
But John Jones is that 0.1% where he tried to sabotage every fight by doing something reckless the week before.
Yeah.
He's open and honest about it.
Yeah.
And then he can have that. The reason why I lost was because of that.
The self-sabotage, yep.
And then he just continued the pattern. Now, with a lot of these young athletes that I'm seeing, and they're household names, they're not, we say young because they're in comparison to the sport of peaking.
Yeah.
They're on the climb, and there's a roller door of chicks coming in and out and in and out. And listen, I've been there.
Yeah.
Ali knows my past was.
Yeah.
But I also caught myself.
Yeah.
And when I stopped that shit and I focused on what I should be doing, as opposed to this abundance of extra shit that's now come because of a title or because of being a big fish in a small pond and everyone wants to be a friend. I can tell you right now, there's probably one person that stayed connected to me in other states that when I've moved around. Yeah. And that's because when I moved, I wasn't accessible. I wasn't a element of draw.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, he's gone out of my life. Fuck him. Like, I was the fuck you guy. Because I left to better my life.
Yeah.
I see it and it kind of worries me. And I've tried to have these conversations because there's a lot of athletes and they've there's so much potential. But they're going to ruin it on a girl that's not going to be around for the next fucking 4 years, So this is the time to grind. This is the time to break out. And a lot of the guys are saying, yeah, but I've got this media. People know me. Look at this line. It's a facade.
Yeah.
It's a facade. You're not one step closer to the fucking trophy. Yeah. You're actually one step back because you're focusing on the fucking shiny bells and whistles as opposed to, I've worked all day. And how many times have you and I worked in Expo, in FIBO, or whatever, and go, hey, what time are you training?
Yeah.
We weren't thinking about pussy. Maybe after training. But
I got married.
Sorry, son, man.
I got married knowing it would straighten out my life. So me and Summer met, and she was the opposite of the girlfriend I had before.
She's incredible, bro.
But I was like, she's the opposite of me. But I was
That's why she's good.
But I was like, this is what I need. This is what I need, right?
Yeah.
After a year, we break up because I'm kind of like, without. I hope she's not watching this. I hope you're not watching this, Summer.
I'll text it to him.
we break up, and I'm like, there's so many girls, right? I'm 30 years old. Like you said, the DMs are full. But something hit me, 8 or 9 months after we broke up. Something hit me, and I'm like, this isn't the way. This is not helping. This is not going to get me where I want to be.
A.k.a. a fat chick hit you. And you're like, what the fuck am I doing?
That's right.
Yo, my standards have gone downhill since summer.
That's not what happened.
Yes, it is. Summer is the fucking pinnacle. You fucked up.
Summer is the pinnacle. Yes, but that wasn't because of looks or anything like that. It was just, man,
you know, bro.
Yeah. So I went back to her and we got back together, and life has really, I can only imagine what my life would have been had I not gone back. It would definitely not be where I am now.
It wouldn't have been.
And I would have been the guy you're talking about. That would have been out chasing this and chasing that and not focused. And so yeah, that's it's a major part of it. And I think I know what you're talking about with these younger guys who are a little bit all over the place. They haven't like really focused on what they want to do. But I feel for them though, because there's more to it than when we started. Because
no question.
When we started, they didn't have to film. Like we didn't have to film. We didn't have to do YouTube. We didn't have to do.
No. So
yes, there are more opportunities, but yes, there's a lot more work.
Did you see the chicks that were around when we were around? When you're coming through. Fouad, I'm looking at your beard. There's more hair on some of these fucking chicks I talk to at expos than fucking your hair, man.
No, but seriously though, think about it.
In fact, there's more fucking hair on their chin than they're on your fucking head.
I know, fuck. No, but
times have changed.
Yeah.
That's the struggle.
No, seriously, think about all the work they have.
Yeah.
Think about these guys. Think about.
But I see it. But do you know what I see? Opportunity.
Well, that's what I'm saying. There's more money. There's more money to be made.
Yes. But
they're being pulled in far more directions than we were. Yeah. And I actually, I don't envy them.
Yeah.
Because when we started, I could just bodybuild.
That is true.
I could just bodybuild, and they would call me for a photo shoot, and I would go do the photo shoot, and it would be in the magazine, and then I could just
go back into the cave kind of thing, right?
Right. And now these guys you can't do that.
No, social media is, and we've talked about this so many times in the podcast, where I obviously got a gym that is very heavily involved within the fitness industry, so I see a lot of different athletes that come in, but the word that I think you and I are kind of dancing around is influencers. Now that's the new term, right? Everybody wants to be an influencer. And the fact is, which is great, everybody has the ability to have a platform for free. Mm-hmm. Social media, being Instagram, being TikTok, being YouTube. So everybody wants to throw themselves into the lion's den of having a podcast, or throwing themselves into filming themselves and editing it. What people don't have the time for or the patience for is the process.
Oh, yeah.
And the process of putting something out and just seeing 3 people have watched it is very heartbreaking. Mm-hmm. When you've got a guy that's maybe a lot younger than you, maybe you've done the exact same thing, maybe better in your eyes, but this person's getting 40,000 views every time a video. And it's like, why can't I break out? So kind of this is turning into advice. It's just like, you just got to fucking keep committing yourself. It's like when I started this podcast up, right? I already had a platform. Yeah. But I wasn't seeing the numbers that I wanted to see.
That's right.
So I was like, am I fucking wasting my time here? Am I wasting my guest time here? And the answer is no. Because every time you do a show, I mean, think back to your very, very first show. Yeah. You're doing it because you're enjoying it. And, like we've already kind of said off air and on air, you just love talking to your friends and getting to find out stuff to society about branch watering, right? Yeah. And when you home in on them things, you're like, wow, I actually do enjoy this. Because I'm talking to my friends that I don't get to see. It's like, bro, when would you and I have the chance to sit down
an hour like
this? Yeah. It's an excuse to fucking talk, right? And talk about really interesting topics, but also, get the chance to catch up and get into the mindset of Fouad, which I haven't even tapped into yet. I'm not even got there yet. But this is what I love about this podcast, because I come away from these episodes and I'm like, that was a fucking good episode, and I didn't know that about you. Yeah. And even though I've known you for a number of years, XYZ. Yeah. I just learned something new, and that reminds me. It's like, this is why I fucking respect you, and this is why I now remember, or now know, whatever it is your driving force. Mm-hmm. And I kind of love that stuff. So going back to the social media side of things, I see all these guys and girls coming in here with their tripods and this and that. And it's a different world from where we were. We were a magazine, turn up at the shoot, get paid to turn up at the shoot, and then turn up at a show. Yeah. And then if your performance was good, you kept your contract, and you kept the photo shoot contract, or whatever it is. That's right, on your clothing contract. Because you and I have been, and we'll talk about this, we've been sponsored by the same companies over the years, sometimes crossovers, but it is different. But when I see it, I go, fuck, there's so much opportunities compared to when you and I were younger coming through the ranks. Because when you and I had our first contracts, or when I was signed with Weed and you were signed with your contracts, we had a stipulation of doing X amount of appearances a year, and they could be done all in one weekend, or it could have been done 2 parts, or whatever, variables, right?
Yeah.
Right now, these guys get told that they have to do X amount of posts a week, X amount of posts a month. They have to do X amount of videos, X amount of photos, and I hate being told that.
I know.
I fucking don't tell me that shit.
I know. Listen, I own a company. I own a company where I have to tell people to do it.
And yet, that's the hat you wear now.
And but I also, because I wear a bodybuilding hat as well, because I was an athlete, I try and walk a line where I'm like, look, I need this from you, but I understand sometimes it's hard. Blah blah blah. You know, I just want to go back to the social media influencer thing for a second. The biggest thing I think these guys don't get, the younger guys don't get, or that they're missing, that I feel is the most valuable part of bodybuilding for me anyway, was the mental health aspect of it. I think I literally got through my 20s because of bodybuilding, because I could go to the gym and just be by myself. Like I wanted to, I mean, with a training partner, whatever, but you're in your own head, right? Like I can't see how that happens when you have a camera in your face all day long. And I almost feel like it hurts your mental health more because of what you said, because now you're not getting to go to the gym and enjoy your time there and heal your mind. You're going to the gym, maybe you're enjoying it, but you're filming, then you're putting this film out and no one's watching it. And it's actually making you suffer more. So if you had depression, if you had anxiety, whatever you had, and you went to the gym to try and feel better, sure, you probably feel better while you're at the gym training, but then you went to put your video out on YouTube and nobody watched it. So now this cycle is back and you're depressed again.
Yeah,
it's like,
that's true.
So I just feel lucky that I had that. I don't know what these young guys do now to be able to have that and still be part of bodybuilding as a career.
So we had our kind of angst was replaced by seeing people in photos.
Yeah.
Right? Magazines that came out and you're like, man, this is exciting. This guy's the same age as me.
Yeah.
Right? Or VHS videos you've seen, you comparing them. And then YouTube came. And you're right, you know, now it's kind of everyone's instantaneously. So what would be put on YouTube now is being put on Instagram Reels and posted instantaneously. I never was that athlete that posted until 4 weeks out. I hid away. You've done actually a good job of getting over that mental hump of being like, I'm going to show you what I look like.
Yeah.
I remember you posing in front of saunas. I remember you posing in your gym, you know.
Yeah.
And them update photos were great for me. In fact, I don't even always remember this, but I would message you every fucking prep. I'd be like, Fouad, post fucking YouTube videos. Because I would watch, and this is crazy, right? Because I would watch, I had a collection of people that, you being the exception here, but I had a collection of people that I would watch that I don't think would be in most people's roller index or YouTube videos.
Yeah.
Because when I watched these videos, I watched the context, and I also watched the training. I also watched the banter.
Yeah.
In between. So I'd watch you.
Yeah.
I'd watch Dusty.
Yeah.
I'd watch. I'd message Dusty, but Dusty, when the fuck are you going shopping again? I would say, and he's got these photos. He'll screenshots. He'd post, and then he'd do a video one time. I messaged him 3 weeks. I was like, bro, isn't it about time you went fucking shopping at Costco? And then this video was Flex Lewis, just Costco trip.
The
so
Costco
like this.
trips.
But I would love that stuff, and I would watch you and Paul talk shit. And then you've done a great job, as I said, of being open and honest in a lot of your videos. I remember one video you posted when you done the PRP in your elbow. And it was you, and it was, oh, bro, you put that out. And I was thinking, again, it done. You were the one that made me not fucking do it. Because you were fucking crying in there. There was tears coming.
Literally.
It looked like it was the worst thing in the world.
That doctor didn't believe in freezing the area.
You're kidding me.
So I had my tricep tendon at a tear in it.
Oh my God, I'm getting sweaty. Fucking.
I don't know if you can see it on camera, but he made me put my elbow like this.
Yeah.
So that it was the tendon was stretched out, and then he just started putting the needle in, but not only in once. He put it in and out.
And move it around. I remember. Look for it. Oh my God.
So I first I swore, And then he goes, no swearing in my office.
Are you serious?
Yeah. And I'm like, you have a fucking needle in my arm, dude. Like, you're just jabbing it around. So I shut my mouth and I put a towel in my mouth. And then he was done. I told Summer, I'm like, turn the camera off, man. I'm like, I can't.
You were sweating.
I was sweating. I had tears coming down my face.
Yeah.
It wasn't like crying like when you're sad. It was more like the pain was so bad.
Yeah, I know. I was like, wait, my doctor wants me to have this. What the fuck?
So then we turn the camera back on and then he does my knees. And I'm like, fuck you, man.
Yeah.
But it helped. Yeah. And I've been doing it ever since. But I think it all comes down to the doctor doing it. Because the doctor that does it now, it's like a little painful, but not like that.
I was going to say this, that you're not with that doctor, right? Surely.
No. I have a totally different doctor. Dr. Khan. He's in the GTA. He's absolutely amazing. He's world renowned now. I'm actually going to see him in Dubai in February.
Nice.
We're doing stem cells for my kidneys.
Nice.
So they've seen some really good. There's been some really good studies done on
IVs, right?
Kidney regeneration through stem cells.
Yes.
So I'm going to go that route in February and have him do that because your kidneys don't regenerate. There's nothing you can do, right? There's no supplements you can take. There's no diet you can be on. Once they're scarred, they're scarred. So this is kind of like a last chance. I'm in a place now where they're good, they're okay. But if it goes further, I don't want to end up on dialysis when I'm 55 or something. So because for those who don't know, your kidneys are going to degenerate as you get older, regardless of what you do. So I figure if I do this now, it'll be a way to keep me healthy for longer. So
is this something that you've been battling through for a while, Fouad?
To be honest with you, I think it was a major reason why I retired, right? It was, there was injuries, there was physical injuries and tears and stuff, my tricep tendon and stuff like that. But the main issue is I want to be around for my wife. We don't have kids. It's me and her. I don't want to leave her alone. And, I love bodybuilding, dude. In the last 2 years since I retired has been very hard for me. Being here this weekend is very hard for me. Not that I'm a huge Olympia competitor, but I just miss, even at small shows, I just miss going to the meetings. I miss being part of the whole thing, right? I miss getting on stage. I miss doing all of it. And it was really internal. And that's why I stress to people now to get their blood work done. Because I'm like, so I saw a doctor when I was 30, and he was like, you have high blood pressure. You have to retire from bodybuilding. Not knowing that this doctor didn't know shit, and I could have just taken a blood pressure medication and kept on bodybuilding and been totally fine. So I thought it was one or the other. He didn't explain to me that I could have taken a blood pressure medication, kept on bodybuilding, and been healthy. So what did I do? I'm like, well, fuck you. I'm not retiring. I'm 30 years old. I feel great. I don't care what you say. That was my mentality. It was everything. Fast forward 8 years. Well, if you go 8 years at 300 pounds with high blood pressure, your kidneys are taking a beating.
Yeah, they're screaming.
Right. So, one thing leads to another. I tear a muscle, then I'm looking at my blood work, and I'm like, this just not, I have to make a change, right? And I never intended for the podcast to be the transition, but it kind of just happened. It doesn't fill the void. Nothing will ever fill the void of bodybuilding,
I understand
as
that.
you probably understand. But it's where I've sunken my passion into now. But that's kind of the story behind the kidneys and how it happened. And that's what, why I stress to young guys now, get your blood work done, catch something early. You can probably take medication and bodybuild for longer and be healthier.
Mentally, how do you get through that time? Because it seems like you've kind of gone over the hump on that and open and honestly talking about it. But
I'm over the hump of talking about it because, see, this is a shitty thing about the internet. People will troll. Trolls will use your faults against you when they're trying to make videos or trying to talk shit. But what people don't realize is I don't express these things for sympathy. I express these things because hopefully some 25-year-old kid out there that wants to be a pro is not thinking it's do or die. I want people to realize that there is a way to mitigate your issues so that you can continue to bodybuild and love the sport. No one says healthy, but it can be healthier than the way I did it. And I think a lot of bodybuilders like to bury their head in the sand and pretend they're fine, which is what I did. So I'm not pointing the finger at anybody.
A lot of bodybuilders do that, man.
That's right. And I'm saying you don't have to, because there's so much now too. Like, and this isn't a plug, but I work with Merrick Health. There's Merrick Health, there's Titan Medical, there's so many blood work companies out there that are willing to help, that I'm just trying to stress this message to get people to be like, okay, this is something I should look into so I can catch it and keep bodybuilding longer. As far as getting over it, I'm not fucking over it. It's really strange, man. People are like, why do you care? You have a successful bodybuilding podcast, you have a successful company. I don't know. You got to go out on your own terms to a certain degree, right? Like, you kind of yes and no?
No.
But it wasn't health, was it?
No, it wasn't. It yes and no. But
okay.
I want you to answer your question before you podcast my ass, Mr. Fouad.
Sorry, I turned into the question guy again.
Stay on track.
Sorry.
You're not used to this, I know. But again, listen, you say you've gone through it and you're still there, but you've done a great job of, I think, masking it for a long time and putting on a smile and going through a scenario with potential hopeful news that you can jump back on stage, but then you have to have that reality check to yourself. It's
of course.
Like you said, and be like, hey, this is not going to happen.
Yeah. No, even
it's tough.
Listen, even if I do PRP and my kidneys or stem cells and my kidneys are fine, I'm not ever going to compete again. That's not a thing.
I'll call you up if I see that post.
Yeah. Fouad's making a comeback. Masters Olympia.
Masters Olympia.
No,
I'm getting flooded with them questions now. I'm like, fucking hell, I'm not even fucking there yet, you cheeky bastards. But anyway, sorry.
No, I don't know how to express it, dude. Look, I put a smile on my face because I am happy about things in life. They're not mutually exclusive, though. You don't have to. You can be happy and be sad at the same time, believe it or not.
Yeah, you can.
So, and bodybuilding has taught me a lot about life. So one of the things, I get messages all the time because I talk about mental health all the time. So I get messages from people who are like, oh, I'm really depressed. What do I do? And I always tell them the number one thing you should do is keep a level of normalcy, keep your schedule. Don't sit in bed and sulk. Don't sit at home and whine about it. And so that's me, right? So do I go through a little bit of depression here and there about not being able to bodybuild or having a different life or having to leave before I felt like my time was up? Yeah, but who cares, right? Like, you still have to get up the next day, put your socks on, and go to the fucking office, do your job, and make the best of the life you have. And that's what creates the happiness, right? Because if I just sat at home and dwelled on it, I would be a mess. So it's not ever going to be something I can't say ever. I don't know if I'll ever be like okay with it. I'm sure there will come a day where I'm like, but there's always going to be days like this or weekends like this where you're here and people are going on stage and you're like, oh, that used to be me. And so those feelings all kind of come back. But look, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, whether you're having a good day or a bad day, the one thing bodybuilding has taught me is you got to get up and do your cardio and do your training.
Yeah. And
this is the same thing. Yeah. It's like, you got to get up, you got to do the shit, you got to go to the office, you got to put it in.
I also feel like the more time that we have spent away from the stage helps, because it's never going to take away the element of the competitivism that has been installed in us, and we're looking at athletes on stage, and wherever show it is, I'd look at that lineup, even if I was at that show, and I'd be like, fuck, I could win this.
I could have won this show.
I could fucking won this. And there's no disrespect to the athletes up there. It's just my mentality of, do I still have it? Like, I honestly know that I still have it. It makes me feel good that I know I still have it, or I'm just telling myself I still have it.
Yeah.
But also that element, I don't want to crack that box open to. Like this weekend, for example, 3 months ago, 2 months ago, 1 month ago, I'd probably been a mess. You know, my gym is absolutely, it's like an expo. I have lost right now currently to the probably since the time of the podcast about 50 pounds. Right?
Yeah.
And it just so happens that my barber that I go to every fucking week decided to butcher my beard. So the element of my face being and having a full like beard has been chopped down. So my face is now skinnier, being seen as skinnier. Yeah. So I get the cliche fucking the polite way of saying, You're skinny as fuck.
You're small. You've lost so much size.
Do you know what that is in our world?
I know.
You look really healthy. I've had that the last 2 days. It's like, that's Flex, you look really healthy.
You're like, fuck you.
And in the end, I was like, that's a fucking way of saying you've lost a shit ton of weight.
You know, it's funny. I'll tell you this. This is funny. I think people are like, oh, he must be feeling really depressed because he lost size. I don't want people to get that opinion. I
feel great. Man.
No, honestly, I don't want people to have that opinion.
Yeah.
When I say I miss bodybuilding, I miss being 300 pounds only for the hour in the gym.
Bro.
I'm totally fine with being like 250 right now or whatever I am. Like I don't.
Yes.
I honestly don't care about that, which is really strange. I just miss the focus and the competitiveness and the. I saw you in a couple of videos ago trying to do like a 4 or 5 plate shoulder press.
Trying, I did, you fucking asshole. What's wrong with you? Get your shit together.
I meant doing. But that's, see, every once in a while it comes back, right? You're like
Milos was there. These Italians that come in, the crew.
Yep.
And I was filming a YouTube video.
Yeah.
A spontaneous YouTube video because I haven't shot one for a while, and I am trained shoulders in 12 weeks. I've been giving my body a whole break. I'm not even on anything right now. I'm not even on TRT, mate.
Yeah.
I said to myself, there's no point taking it until after the Olympia. I wish I never said that because I kind of shrunk even fucking more over the fucking shrinking that I've already done. But I went into the gym and I threw it on a little shoulder session. I was like, fucking hell, I'm actually feeling really good. Mm-hmm. And then I went over the press and I went 1, 2, 3, and nothing was. I was doing like fucking 20 reps. I got a 20 stop, and I've done 4 plus. Done. I got a 20 stop, and I was like, camera was filming. I was like, I'm going to try 5 just for reps. And if it wasn't on, I would have dropped it and I said, just take the footage out. I understand. I'm not fucking foolish.
Yeah.
And then in the other fucking breath, Milos and all these guys seen 5 plates on the shoulder press and they come over and Milos like, hey, you gonna fuck that up? And I'm like, that's my Milos impression.
That's good.
And I'm like, oh shit. And I kind of said something on his reel, and he ended up posting. I was like, fucking pressure. And then you said, my back into that place.
Yeah.
I am very good at, opening Pandora's box in my head, and that's what I used to live. And he reminded me, it's like, I still got it.
I know that feeling, and that's why I got hurt last weekend.
Oh, fuck,
I was doing, dude, so the last 4 weeks in a row, I've been squatting 4 plates again.
Oh, you've been running so good, too.
I know, but then I decided to bodybuild again. I was like, fuck this, I want to bodybuild. So I start squatting again, and I'm like, it's funny, when you retire, you start thinking of the last time you'll do something. And I said to myself 3 months ago, I'm like, I don't think I'll ever squat 4 plates again, because squatting got really hard for me. Yeah. And then somehow, I think it's because I started eating better. I don't know. My strength started to get better in the gym again. I start squatting. And I'm like, I'm doing 4 plates every weekend. I'm like, I'm fucking crushing 4 plates for reps. And last weekend, 3 plates, I felt something tweak in my knee. So then I do 4.
You done 4?
Well, because I thought it was nothing. I thought it was nothing.
What's that snap? Let's put another fucking plate on.
It wasn't a snap. It was just like a mild tweak. I'm like, it doesn't feel like much.
What's this mild tweak that sounded like a snap?
So meathead me, because like you said, you open Pandora's. I'm just in that place, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, but it's just a tweak. Just put a plate on. So I wrap up. I put my straps on, my knee wraps on. 4 plates for 15 reps. Next day, I can't walk.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, oh, fuck. So then I go get an ultrasound. I got a quad tear.
Oh, fuck off.
Yeah, I got PRP shot done. It'll be fine in a few weeks.
Where is it? On the knee? Or
it's 1 centimeter. So you have your quad tendon is 3 centimeters.
Yeah.
I have a 1 centimeter tear off the bone.
Is this an injury of old that's resurfaced? Oh,
no, just wear and tear on the tendons.
I mean, I used to fucking break my heart.
I think, this is the thing. I actually think, and this is just bro science, it's not anything to it, but part of the reason I also think it's important for people to get blood work done, I think a lot of my injuries came from internally not being as healthy.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? And I don't know if that's scientifically proven or not, but I feel like if I was completely healthy on the inside, I maybe would have had less injuries as well. So
I would agree to that.
I don't mean to be repetitive, but I figure a lot of people watch your podcast. It's important for these young guys to know that they should try and stay healthy while they're bodybuilding as much as they can. Absolutely,
and I'll preach on that too. I feel like there's, and again, I've done it all my career. I preached about it all my career. more so in the circles and the interactions I would have with a lot of the younger up-and-coming guys.
Yeah.
And then certainly more than ever when Dallas passed, because you kind of like, I lived that.
Yeah.
And I was there, and he shoulda, woulda, coulda. And I know in my heart of hearts, I told him so many times ago, and it is what it is, right? But I also think that Dallas would have fallen on his sword too. He just knew something was not right, and he just didn't want to investigate it. But for the guys who have the mentality like that right now, and I know you've already said that, with the mindset of, I look great, I feel a little tired, nothing a little caffeine won't fix.
That's right, yeah.
That ain't the fucking answer, man.
There's been too many, man. Like, in the last, take my father out of it because he was probably 10 years ago now, but in the last 4 years, I've lost 3 very close people to me, right? Luke passed.
Luke, John.
And then I had John. And then I had my mom. And then I had Cedric. And I'm like, Cedric was 44, I think. I think Cedric was 44. John was 49.
Sean in the mix then?
And then I knew Sean, but we weren't close. But I knew Sean too. And then I'm like, I'm fucking 44. Right? So you start to take things a little bit more seriously, and you start to. But then I also think to myself, this is something that we have to start talking about more often.
I agree.
So, yeah.
I even, I will. I'm thinking of saying it, but fuck it, because I'm all about the longevity of the sport, right? So I've even proposed a couple of ideas to have competitors do. Yeah. To even have the ability to cash in that Olympia qualification.
Meaning what? Me and the guys have talked about some stuff on the podcast too, like in this regard. But can you explain that?
Absolutely. I mean, listen, I feel that athletes should have a medical sign-off. I mean,
from who though?
A doctor, a qualified doctor. But again, listen, the semantics is not the point.
It's tough,
But you go and play. All right, if you were playing soccer, right, and I'm signing this guy from fucking Milan, AC Milan, to Liverpool, he's gonna have a full fucking medical before he comes. Yeah, and they're gonna have every fucking CAT scan, every fucking MRI, every type of X-ray. And then they're going to do the physical, and they're going to do the blood work, and they're going to see a guy is in tip-top shape. And they'll sign him. They'll pay him what he's fucking signed. There's also been athletes who have gone through that process. They found something, they get signed.
I think in that regard, though, that would be on the supplement companies. Because if you think of a team, right, the IFBB is not going to do that. Like the federation doesn't do it, the team does it.
Yeah, what I'm saying is the semantic side of things and the details and how it gets weighed out. Yes. And I don't think it's up to the IFBB because I think there would be it's just too much to handle. They're an organization that, unless they went down that road, but again, I wouldn't know how they could even police that, right? But
one of the things we discussed on the podcast, and I think Roman kind of came up with it because we batted around a bunch of ideas, and we were talking about mandatory blood work, and then we're like, okay, you can't do mandatory blood work because too many legalities, blah blah blah. Anyway, long story short, it eventually led to Roman saying, maybe they just have to watch a seminar and they have to fill out paperwork that says they did it. Maybe they have to do a quiz. Maybe they have to have a sign off from somebody, just so at least that way the federation could say, look, we can't monitor what they're doing. We can't make them do anything, but to get your pro card, you have to go through this course. And it's 2 weekends. Yeah. It's 2 hours each day. Something like that, where you have like a John Jewett type of accreditation of some doctor to come on and say, explain what the blood work means and what it should look like, and that way at least they're being proactive and at least teaching the guys and not just being completely hands off.
It's a good idea.
But then there's also no legalities because you're not saying we're just telling you this is the information you should know.
And would you say who puts that on the IFBB?
Well, if I was running things, I would say, look, we're going to pay this doctor over here that we trust that knows hormones and knows XYZ. Yeah. We're going to trust this doctor to put on the seminar, and the IFBB would pay that doctor. The guys pay what, $200 for a pro card. You say, okay, it's $220, and then you take the extra $20 out of everybody's pro card and give it to the doctor, and have him do a 1 weekend fucking seminar.
Yeah. So the UFC. Work USADA, the drug testing, USADA.
Yep.
And they have this mandatory seminar too.
Yeah.
Where the athletes...
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they sit down, they get all the paperwork sent to them on what they can and can't take.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of supplement companies out there. I mean, it's happened to fucking Redcon, right?
Yeah.
Where they would take, not Redcon, Blackstone?
Blackstone
before,
I think,
when Aaron and PJ got into the issue where there was tainted supplements. And, when you've got athletes who are in a performance sport and they are watching every microgram that goes in them, and they're being told, okay, this is the cheat sheet. You can take this much vitamin C, not anymore. You can't take this, you can't take Benadryl, but you can take that kind of thing, right? I don't know what I'm privy to other than what I've been told, but when you then go and buy a supplement from a GNC or something like that, and you're expecting to have what's on the lid in the tub, exactly, and it's not, you have been waking up in the morning. You have been pushing yourself. And if you're taking MMA, right, you're being kicked around in the fucking head and chopped away at your legs, and you get tested, and some fucking shitbag company has got you popped. That's what that seminar was about, because they seen a lot of tainted supplements coming through the market, and it was more of like, hey guys, listen, watch yourselves. Only buy these supplements with the what's the fucking code?
The certification on them. Yeah.
I don't know what that would be, but it's a safe haven then for these athletes, right? There's nothing going to be tainted. It's not going to be made in the same area as something else. There's protocols and there's etc. Yeah. With bodybuilding and taking that element, and not to confuse everybody, but taking that structure and having, instead of your SADA, have a doctor. Yeah. And then replace, the what you can have and can have. Or in some cases, yes, right?
Well,
as a cheat sheet.
I think all you would say, I don't think you're going to be able to the doctor's going to be able to direct what to use, but what you could say is, these are the main markers of your blood work you should be looking for.
Yeah. I mean, as supplements to aid these numbers.
Oh, yeah, you could do that too. Yes. You could say these are supplements that will help you with your health. Yes. But I think more so what the guys need is, this is what you should be looking for, and when you get to this number, you need to worry. Yeah. Right? Because guys will see like 150 on their ALT and their liver enzymes and be like, oh, I'm fine. Yeah. It's like, yeah, you may be fine, but it's leading to 250, which is not fine.
So my doctor seemed worse.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like you need a professional that deals with what we deal with to go, these are the numbers you need to be most concerned about. This, when you get to this level, you really need to start worrying. Yeah. And then also, these are health supplements you can use that will help keep things somewhat stable.
Fouad, you are, and you have been very vocal about this. I've been vocal in my own ways, but more behind the scenes. You kind of be more vocal with athletes. And I think there's a call in there for you, bro. I know there's a couple of feathers ruffled in the past of fucking titles and stuff. But
athlete's rep.
Yeah, but listen, it doesn't have to be an athlete's rep, right?
Yeah.
It could be a, I don't know. I can fucking shoot myself in the foot. But again, it's a spokesperson, I guess, that, you can make that fucking title up. It could be the health and fitness advisor of the fucking IFBB, whatever. But again, I think there should be a title created, and I think you should be a appointed person for that. I mean, athlete's rep is one thing. Yeah. What we're talking about is something else. The athlete's rep is now dealing with the the questions of fucking tens of thousands of athletes right now.
Well, and them competing and how they're going to compete. Yeah.
Taking that this whole in a box
out of it,
and having a designated person that kind of would, steer the role of athletes and maybe it's a couple of various different hats that you wear. But I feel like you definitely have a calling in our world, because there's a passion that comes with it now, because as you said, you've lived the life. Yeah. You've kind of gone through some of the issues that you felt that you could have nipped in the bud at an earlier age. Yeah. And then there's nobody better to do a job that somebody that's lived in them trenches, right? So it pisses me off when I see people who are kind of calling shots that have never fucking dieted in their life and doing this and that. But you are in a beautiful scenario, and you are in a situation where you can now create this role for yourself. If not, fucking saying out loud, the athletes need to create a role for you, because I think this is something that, not I'm trying to put more shit on your fucking plate.
No,
you know.
Listen, this kind of stuff is the stuff I love, right? Like I have an extreme passion for bodybuilding. It's given me everything in my life. And I want to see more people do it. I don't like the idea of people throwing their hands up in the air and being like, well, you're going to take steroids, you're going to die, doesn't matter what you do. I think that's bullshit. I think there are very responsible ways to do things. And is it going to be healthy? Probably not. It's not the healthiest lifestyle in the world. Even just eating the mass amounts of food we have to eat is not healthy. So I'm not saying it's healthy, but there are ways to mitigate the situation. If anybody ever gave me any type of responsibility to do it, I would love to. The thing is, I'm not privy to those conversations, and I'm not going to go, I'm not trying to get voted for it, right? If somebody asked me, I'd be more than happy to help in any way I could. I just, the IFBB is they have the people they use, and they have the people that they like to run things. And if they ever asked me to help in any way, I definitely would. But I'm more talking to, this is why I like having a podcast, because I get various people on the podcast that know more than I do, and they can relay this message. And so even if the IFBB doesn't structure something that has to be done every year, people can do this on their own.
You're still doing your part.
Yeah.
And giving back in that part, right?
Yeah.
But again, you're right. There's no appointed position. There is no position. But I'd love to hear what the fans think in the comment section, and if this gets ripped somewhere.
People are going to
put on somewhere.
What if it goes the opposite way? They're like, no, fuck that.
Yeah. No, I don't think that's the case. Again, you've created it already. As you said, you've got the podcast.
Yeah.
You talk about it, multiple times. It's not something, this has happened. We're going to talk about it now, and then it's going to be pushed under the rug.
Yeah.
Because that's what's happened, right? We've suffered with a lot of deaths. We've lost a lot of friends. And I think the overarching message here is, could them guys still be on this earth if they had more knowledge, more things done in terms of blood work, and got the advice? And I think that is an answer. That's a question that never can be answered, but it is a thought.
Yeah.
And because we have emotional attachments to these people in particular, there's the element of like, I don't want to lose anybody else, but the fact is nobody's doing anything right now, right? So we need to have this conversation, because as awkward as it is and as taboo as everybody wants to turn their head to, I lived a life, and thank God I had Neil Hill as my coach.
Yeah,
we done it a very conservative way, and I was able to retire healthy as fuck.
Yeah.
Really blessed. No issues. I had the same injuries. In fact, the injuries that I came into the sport from, rugby, are the ones that I left with. I got fucking more, but I'm saying the bigger ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, bro, listen, I don't want to kind of self-appoint you to anything, but I've sat back and I've listened to what you've been saying, and as a friend, I think that it's a very passionate project that you've created, and I think there's legs to it. So
I think, when you talk about the people that we've had pass, there's inevitably people are going to say, oh, it wouldn't have mattered. Those people could be right, but that doesn't mean we can't help other people.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that, it doesn't mean that getting your blood work done is going to save every single person on earth, but it's going to help people. It's going to help you get to know things ahead of time, which will inevitably give you the choice, at least, whether you want to bury your head in the sand or not, but at least you'll know, so you can decide at some point, say, okay, maybe I should get my head out of my ass and probably try and do something about this. So that's the thing about that. But at the end of the day, whether there's a structure for it or not doesn't really matter. I'm going to continue to have doctors and stuff on my podcast that will keep putting out the message. And the thing that sucks is when somebody passes, everybody talks about it, but nothing happens. But we'll continue to talk about it and see where it goes,
Yeah.
Sorry, this podcast went way the wrong way. I didn't mean it to turn into like a fucking
listen, it's a podcast.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, bro, and obviously there's a few things that I want to touch on before we wrap it up. What are we at, Tyus, right now? What are we on? Oh, wow. Fucking over
Sorry,
14.
dude.
No. I love talking like this, because for me, that this is context, right? This is fucking real life stuff. And one of the reasons when you and I talk, I don't come in with any preset thing. In fact, before the podcast, open and honesty, I said, hey, Fouad, is there anything you want to talk about in particular? He's like, no. And you said to me, whenever you do your podcast, you go on with a clean slate and you just love the podcast going in any direction. Yeah. It does go on. And this is the same for us here. You know, I get incredible successful athletes sitting in that chair. I didn't have a podcast for anybody today, so I asked you, but
hey, as long as I can fill the slot, that's fine.
I have incredible athletes that come and sit in that chair, and because I have history with everybody that has been there to this point, right? And in so many different genres, I just let it fucking flow into everything. You know, I had.
What are you going to do when you don't have history with the person? Because I tell you, it's far easier to do a podcast when you have a little bit of knowledge of them, right?
Well, I do my due diligence, so you know research. This. Oh yes. So when I have anybody on, like Sean Strickland, I didn't know, right? Mm-hmm. I've met Sean Strickland several times, and he's crazy. And the reason why I had Sean Strickland on my podcast is he's a great guest to have. Yeah. He doesn't do many sit down podcasts. He does a lot of on the fly, because these people are also going to. They're interviewing Sean because they know they're going to get clickbait.
Yeah, he's going to say something crazy.
I wanted to interview Sean to get to know Sean.
Yeah.
And I came off that podcast being like, holy fucking shit, this guy is mad. But he's a genius. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And he's also a very misunderstood person. Yeah. And both myself and my producer, we were like, man, that was an incredible podcast. I don't even know what, because it was so such depth to it. And for anybody who's not watched it, you know, we go back and watch it, because this guy is probably the most controversial athlete in MMA, but because they cut up his shit and they only put the, you know, not the highlights, they're going to put the lowlights, right?
That's right.
So that's why he doesn't do anything, because people have taken advantage of him. And then he's kind of had this attitude, it's like, well, you're going to fuck me over, so I'm just going to talk you more shit. And I didn't want that to happen on you. And as you can see from the podcast, we kind of talked about various different subjects. And I had no, you know, prefixed anything going in. I had certain things that are in my notes, but I didn't even look at my phone. But there's other podcasts that I've done that I've actually, you know, put several hours into.
Really?
Yes, I have to. Because I don't want to sit here and be like, you know, bodybuilding, I feel like I know inside out, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm trying to get to know the unseen. We mentioned that with the branch side of things, right?
Sure.
But with the MMA stuff, as much of a passion I have for that, I still have to do my research and dust up on certain things.
Yeah.
And then it just becomes more of an enjoyable podcast, because if I know something, I'm going in confident, or I say something to these guests and they're like, oh, you know, fucking fine, bro.
Yeah.
So how do you prep for your guests?
I don't. One guest. I prep for one guest.
Flex Lewis.
No. Flex Lewis. No, not Flex Lewis. Patrick Bet-David was on. I don't know if you know who Patrick Bet-David is. He's a financial guy.
Oh yes, of course I know who he is. He was so out the spectrum. You had him on your fucking podcast?
Yeah.
How did I miss that?
I don't know. It didn't do a ton of views, because I think people know it's a bodybuilding podcast.
Yeah.
And he's not from the bodybuilding world, even though he has a passion for bodybuilding.
He used to compete, though, right?
I don't think he ever competed, but
he wanted to train goals and everything else. Yeah, I like the guy. He's very knowledgeable. He's
extremely smart.
I'm so glad that he put a lot of more focus into his own podcast.
That's right. Yeah,
he got the OG bodybuilders on and stuff like that. But
he's very, very good. Very, very knowledgeable. Yes. I love watching his show. So I just reached out to him, and he said, "Yeah, I'd love to do it."
Nice.
I think he was fitting it into his schedule, so it was kind of sucked because I didn't get as much time. I still got an hour with him, but he kind of had to go, so I didn't really feel completely comfortable. But that podcast, I read his book, so that when I talked to him, I could have an idea of some things I wanted to talk about with him, right? Other than that, I've nothing.
But you stay in the same realm, right?
But I stay in the bodybuilding world.
Yeah.
And I don't know all the people that come on well, but I just feel like if you start talking to someone, you'll have something to talk about. Yeah. It'll go some way. I have a few tenets that I always want to touch on. Mm-hmm. Where they came from, what their relationship's like, what their family's like, why they started. And those seem all very obvious, but when you get into them, a whole bunch of other questions arise from those 4 or 5 points. And then I can get into, and then I also like to try and promote them in some way, right? Like if they have like Brandon Curry came on at the time when he had a supplement company. So we tried to talk about that a little bit. And, but yeah, I don't, it feels, to me, it feels like as long as I touch on those main points, I can always branch out into a million different ways. So it seems I get nervous every time I do a podcast. I get nervous, not the group ones, because that's just me and the guys shooting the shit. Right. But every time I do a one-on-one, I'm nervous because I still deal with anxiety to a certain degree. But once the camera starts rolling, then it just rolls.
Yeah, and you forget about it, right? You're in the conversation, and you're truly and thoroughly there.
Yeah,
you know, and you're listening, with detail, because some people will say something and that spurs off the next question, which is what happened now with me.
Yeah,
you just said something. You've got your core questions, and I kind of touch on that stuff too. But one thing I kind of haven't, and we're really into the podcast to even circle back on this, but obviously you have an ethnicity.
Mm-hmm.
Were you born in Canada?
Yep. So
go on.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
No. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say. So I have 3 brothers and a sister.
Yeah.
And they were all born in Lebanon. Mm-hmm. And then my parents moved here. My dad was a welder, so my dad got a job here, and then my family followed. And then they didn't want to have any more kids, but they ended up having me by accident, which is great.
Good accident.
Good accident. So yeah, I was born in Canada, and I just that's it. That's kind of how it all started.
And was there anybody in your family that trained that got you into the bodybuilding?
I think the reason I got into bodybuilding was my dad, because my dad was like a dad's dad, like from back in the day. There was no I love yous, there was no hugs, there was no bullshit. He's like, I'm bringing the fucking food home, I'm bringing the money home, and you guys make sure you do your fucking schoolwork. You're not going to get a pat on the back from me.
Okay.
And not to make him sound like a rough, but he was just an old school dad. It's not like
different generation.
Yeah, it's not like now where every father is coddling their son because that's normal. Back then, that wasn't normal. My mom did the coddling. My dad was the breadwinner. But he used to love wrestling, and he used to love Paul Orndorff, and he would always do the fucking bicep flex. And my dad was a thicker guy. Like he wasn't fat, but he was genetically kind of built. He worked with steel all his life. Yeah. So he'd always do the bicep pose with me, right? And he was always like, and I always thought, this guy loves muscle, and you want your dad's approval. I think that's how the whole athletic thing started. I mean, I started playing football in high school, but I think if you want to go deep psychology, subconscious, I'm going to blame my father, because he always had like a passion for wrestling and muscular guys and action movies and shit. And I used to sit there, and that was my only connection to my dad. We would watch WWE fucking together.
WWF.
It was the only time, it was WWF at the time. It was the only time he would let me stay up at night. Saturday night's main event. We would stay up Saturday night and watch it with him.
I had to sneak down with my uncle.
Yeah.
I didn't have that.
Or he liked watching Arnold movies and shit. So
That's great.
So I think subconsciously, and he didn't even speak English. He just liked watching the movies.
No way, he didn't speak at all.
My dad felt, listen, they moved us to this country, to Canada, for a better life because there was war. And he's like, I don't want my kids growing up around war. I want them to have an education. I don't want them to grow up like me. So he brought us to Canada. And he also felt bad about that. So he was like, I'm not going to let go of our culture. When you're in the house, you'll speak Arabic.
Yeah.
When you're out of the house, you will assimilate with the culture and you will be Canadian.
Right.
But you will not forget where you came from.
Yeah.
So my mom learned English. My dad chose not to on purpose because it was our only way to communicate.
Holy crap. Stubborn
motherfucker.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So we had to translate everything for him, whether he was going to, we had to go with him to the doctor. We had to go with him to.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he always had one of his kids with him translating. But it worked because we spoke Arabic in the home all our lives, and we kept our Lebanese cultures with our food and, fasting during Ramadan and like all the different things that Muslims do, and the food that Arabs eat and all that. So it worked. He kept the culture at home, but he also made sure, he's like, I want you to assimilate. I want you to live the Canadian experience. Just don't forget where you came from.
Yeah, I get that.
So I think back to my parents, man, how fucking smart they were. Like, how did they know? How did they? Sometimes you ever think back to your parents and go, how did they fucking know to do that?
Are your parents still here with us?
No. My dad passed in 2006, and my mom passed last February.
Have you ever been back to Lebanon?
No, I want to. The closest I've been is Saudi Arabia. So my extended family is all overseas. And at the time when I was 7 years old, my extended family had a heating and cooling business in Saudi Arabia. So my mom, my brother, my sister, and me went and visited my family when I was like 7. And I met them all. And but I've never been to Lebanon. And now that I want to go, Lebanon's kind of in shambles right now.
Yeah, it's bad.
So I'm like, I don't know if I want to go. And I think I might just want to go just to see family and then come home. I don't think I want to stay for any extended period of time. But listen, it's funny. We were very, I don't want to say we were poor, but we definitely weren't middle class. My mom made a lot of our clothes and stuff like that. Like, she was a seamstress by trade. And she cooked all our food. We couldn't. I remember my mom said to my dad one time, she's like, can we order a pizza? And he looked at her and he's like, you want to order a pizza? If we order pizza, we're going to be on the fucking street. He goes, you can make that pizza at home for $3.
No.
Yes. So,
did she?
Yes.
I'm sure she did.
She made the fucking pizza.
Oh my God.
That was the upbringing. But you know what's funny? When I think back to when I was a kid, I was like, man, all my kids have all these fucking toys. I don't have shit. But when I'm older and I look back at it, I'm like, you know what, man? It was so rich in love and connection that you didn't feel poor. So I don't know. When I think back on my parents, I'm just amazed at how they made it.
I think I'm more appreciative now, or more so the last several years, and now more than ever now that I've got my own kids, of what my parents done for us kids.
Yeah,
you know, my brothers too, and my sister.
Yeah,
and you know, my dad worked in the steel. My mother used to be a nurse, but she was written off. You know, she was made disabled.
That's right.
And so that growing up, I always had a mum in the house, and if my mother wasn't, you know, doing something, my grandparents would be the kind of like the second parents.
Yeah.
So I came from an incredible loving upbringing.
Sure.
You know, materialistic stuff. No, I know I've talked about this on the podcast in the past, but you know, materialistic stuff was never there. But I'm glad.
Yeah.
Because I also know guys who've grown up a lot differently that had everything and have zero connection with their parents.
Yeah.
They kind of given them whatever they wanted.
Yep.
And then, you know, that disappears. That turns into last year's edition. And this computer then turns into fucking something 10 years ago. But that connection with your parents, if it wasn't there, it's not going to fucking come back. You know, it's always going to have a void, right? You're always going to have some sort of resentment, or this is what I hear with people who've grown up with a lot of money. Not all in the cases, but saying with some of the people I know, it's like, yeah, but Flex, listen, I would exchange that all for that connection.
It's funny you say that, because I always, and I hope nobody gets mad at me for saying this, but I've always felt like that. If you grew up poor, you developed something a little different. You developed a little bit more substance, or going through suffering or pain helps you develop a little differently.
I agree.
Because it's funny, when I was a kid, I hated being poor. I hated that I couldn't have the fucking things my friends had. And then now being older, I almost like appreciate it a bit.
You do.
I'm almost like, you know what? I'm kind of glad that happened. Because I always wonder too, is like part of your work ethic is driven through that. You know what I mean? So I don't know, who would I be if I grew up rich? Would I be some lazy fuck? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
or you could be a obnoxious asshole.
Or I could just be rich and have daddy's money. That would be cool too.
Yeah, that would be cool. But with it, right? Because again, you kind of had it all your life, and then you've got everything you want. And then it's just, what's next? Because that's why a lot of these people go off the fucking deep end. You know, they've got it, so it's like, what next? And they're trying to chase then the next high, which is, most cases, drugs.
The what's next is something I'm dealing with now. And we talked about bodybuilding and suffering with, you know, not suffering, but, you know, accepting that it's over. So you just touched on the fact that you have 2 kids. I've talked to Paul about this, because Paul has 2 kids as well. And one of the things that I'm very envious of is my friends that have children. Because I feel like at 44, and this may sound arrogant, I don't know, but I've lived a pretty comfortable life. I'm pretty happy. I've had all the things I really want. I'm not saying I can go buy a fucking Lamborghini tomorrow or whatever, but
you could though.
Maybe. Yeah. But I've had all the things I want. I've had a successful career, happy bodybuilding career, happy life, wife, house, whatever. I don't have kids. And it's like, I feel like it's the one piece of the puzzle. Because I don't know about you, but when I was like 10 years old, I had a vision of what my life would be like. I'm like, I'm going to be, once I'm 20, I'm going to party like an asshole. Once I'm 30, I'm going to settle down. You know, if I'm 35, I'm going to have a couple kids. And then it's all kind of come true, except for that last piece of the puzzle.
Do you still want it though?
Me and Summer have talked about adoption. I don't think we can have kids. It's actually both of us, which is nice because there's no resentment to either person. We've talked about adoption.
I think you'd be a great dad.
I think I'd be a great dad too.
I know you would be.
Sorry if that sounds bad, but
I know you would be.
So it's something we've discussed. We're just.
What is it? Execution?
I think well, first of all, in Canada, it's very hard.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this is a rule. I think I don't want to misspeak for people who know more about this than I do, but from what I've learned, there's like a 2-year probationary period that allows the child time for the parents to come back and get them if they want. This is through public adoption, right? Not private.
You meet the kid.
So you can meet the kid,
build a relationship.
You build a relationship. Let's say, the worst case scenario, imagine you meet like a 1-year-old.
Yeah.
Think about the time of learning between a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden at 3, the mom comes back and goes, I think I want my kid back.
Huh?
And I'm like, I just raised that kid from.
Yeah.
So.
Can that happen though? Legally? No.
I think through public adoption, I'm pretty sure that's the rule is there's a 2-year probationary period through public adoption. Then you have private adoption, which is more money, which is fine, but I don't think that you get the same level of paperwork. I really have to learn more about it, to be honest with you. But it's not just execution. Part of it is we have a thriving business, and I don't want to be the kind of dad that's not there.
Maybe it batters you.
I thought that too, but you're a busy person. You have a gym and multiple businesses and
and I cut time out.
You find time, right?
I don't do fuck all on Saturday. Well, listen, there's never a fuck all time. There's no downtime because it's on time, but then there's also different hats that are worn. Like for example, on a Saturday, I don't even come to the gym. I don't even talk about bodybuilding. Don't call me about nonsense unless it's an emergency. That's my family time.
Yeah.
And then I cut out, obviously, time every single day to be present, bath time, bedtime, all that stuff, the critical part time. I pick my daughter up, either I pick her up every day or I certainly drop her off every single day. So there's moments that I feel like I have with her that are ours. And then things on top, right, that, mommy won't do, that daddy will.
Yeah.
And then I think them are the elements that, because you don't know, you're not aware of, that's going to fill your happiness up even more. Because
like what?
Just all that stuff, bro.
Yeah.
Just like there's time where you need away from the business.
Yeah.
And that's the excuse that you can now have to be like, hey, I got to fucking get out of here.
Yeah.
It's fucking 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock. I got to pick up little Jimmy.
Yeah.
You know? little
It could be Jimmy. He's adopted. He could already be Jimmy.
Yeah, he could be Jimmy. I could think of worse names, but Jimmy's good. Little Jimmy from fucking Crash or high school.
Never thought I had a kid named Jimmy, but now that you said it, I think I could have a kid named Jimmy.
Yeah.
It's funny though when you start bodybuilding. So when you start bodybuilding, people are like, "Oh, do you know the risks? Like, there's some risks in bodybuilding, and you might not make any money." And they say, and it's funny when you're 20 years old and you start bodybuilding, you're like, yeah, I know the risks. I know the risks. And you think about the risks and you think about, what if I'm unhealthy? What if I hurt myself? What if I don't make any money? What if I'm not successful? What if I never turn pro? You don't think about what if I never have kids?
Yeah, that's a fucking just a bigger topic as what we spoke about.
I know. But it's funny because I just didn't consider that.
Yeah.
I thought lots of bodybuilders have kids. It's a big deal. So that's a one. If somebody asked me, like, what do you regret about bodybuilding? That would be the one. But then again, my wife has her thing going on too, so it necessarily wouldn't have mattered. But, so yeah.
But rounding all that off, and then we can move on to closing this up because I know you got to get back to the booth and everything else. But Michael Chandler, the fighter Michael Chandler, he's adopted 2 kids. Yeah. And him and his wife are both Caucasian. Yeah. And he's adopted 2 kids from...
2 African-American kids,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. And first of all, I love Michael Chandler. We actually sponsored him on Arsenal Strength. I think he's cool. A phenomenal athlete. Yeah. But what he personifies on stage and off, he's always talking about motivation, greatness, seeking it, but he also puts that into his work ethic too. That guy trains like a madman. Yeah. And then he goes in and fights the best of the best and goes to war. Yeah. Like stands there and throws and gets smacked up and comes back. And I think that, that is a guy that has grown more deeply in my heart, and more so when I seen what he done to change these kids' lives, right? Mm-hmm. He adopted Hap. I was actually around when I was connecting with Arsenal Strength. He came up from Nashville to Knoxville. We met. I introduced him to the team. I knew him before that, but I introduced him to the team and connected him with Arsenal Strength. And then he was telling me the story about him and his wife just getting all the paperwork together and picking up Hap when he was a baby. Yeah. And now he's adopted another kid, and a phenomenal athlete. But again, if you ask him, and this guy is unbelievably busy. Yeah. It's just bad at him. He loves them kids. He has got everything and more that has filled the gaps in his life from adopting these kids. And I just think that there's something to explore. If you have that passion, of course, listen, some people shouldn't be meant to have kids. Yeah. And then some people are meant to be, taking on, a scenario that's been created for these poor kids in a bad lifestyle and changing their lives. Yeah. Maybe that's you, maybe it's not, but I think you'd be a great dad, and I'll change the subject on that. But
thank you.
Imparting many fucking subjects covered. Is there anything that you want to talk to the fans about, or anything that's going on, or anything you want to make anybody aware of?
No, man. To be honest with you, look, this podcast has been very serious.
Yeah, it has been.
No, it just, maybe just the way I woke up today. But listen, I'm very grateful for everything in my life. And the only message I want to give out to the fans is just, I appreciate their support always. There's been so much support and so many messages from people about the podcast and how much it's helped them, and through Hostile and how people wearing our shirts and stuff. And it just, honestly, it's still, if I'm walking through a gym and somebody's wearing our shirt or something, it still like gets me. Yeah. So I'm really just thankful, to be honest with you. I don't have anything to promote or anything like that. I'm thankful for everybody's support, to be honest.
Yeah. And listen, mate, this is a podcast, so I don't think there was no format that I came on you. I was going to like bust balls and laugh and joke, because I think this podcast for you maybe was something that's kind of not the norm, because you got a bunch of guys around you that talk about a lot of different things. I know we've already covered that. Yeah. But there's always like a lot of laughter. There's a lot of laughter that's involved with that. I know the guys know you, right? It's just me and you talking.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like sometimes I don't get a chance to get out my thoughts because it's a group and it's not time for it. Like it's a different feeling, right? And if I'm doing one-on-ones, it's not really about me. Yeah. Right? It's about the guest. So, yeah. Maybe I just went a little too deep. Sorry.
Listen, mate, if this is the time that if this was to happen, then I'm fucking honored that it's happening, because listen, I also know that when you're in a group of people, I can refer to it being like at the pub, right? Yeah. If you go to the pub and you're with all your friends, kind of a bit of an analogy because we're in the fitness world, but for guys who are like in that world, in one foot out the other, but if you go to the pub and you see your friends there, you're not going to go there and talk about some deep shit.
Of course.
You're going to go there and you might say, oh, I've had a rough day. Yeah. But you say the generic shit.
That's right.
And then you move on.
That's
you're
right.
There, you want to be cheered up.
That's right.
And I think you do a great job of making sure that everybody else is on tip-top shape and cheering up. And then there's maybe never a time for you to talk about this stuff, because not that it's a fear that you change the dynamic of the podcast, but you're always in control, right? So you allow other people to talk about it, but you want to allow yourself to talk about it. Whether there's going to be a reply and you're never able to get it all out, and everybody's got an opinion you don't want to hear, but sometimes just let the fucking guy talk. And today you've been able to talk about a multitude of different subjects. Yeah. And I've enjoyed this podcast. Is it the funniest podcast I've had? You fuck no. But I don't think that's our intention on coming on here. Every time we've talked long-winded. We've talked about, like I said, fucking 50 different subjects. But we've talked about a lot of shit that a lot of people don't talk about. We've talked about health and wealth and mentality and, you know, you saying where you are in life and what you've gone through and what you're still trying to do. Yeah. And also being open and honest and vulnerable about, you know, just like the family side of things. So, you know, I thank you, bro. I know that you and I have known each other a very long time. Mm-hmm. We've had some fucking epic sushi battles. We've also...
Sunday night.
What's happening Sunday night?
You're coming out with us.
Am I?
If you want.
Jesus.
It's open bar.
Don't tell where we're going just in case this podcast goes out fucking first and then the fans are going to be there.
I hope this has got to go.
It's going out after Olympia, yeah.
No, this has got to go before.
Oh, fuck it, really? Do you want to get it open? He's like rolling his eyes. I don't think you're going to fit it in, he says. We'll see. But yeah, it's always a pleasure, mate. And we've had incredible lot of memories around the world. Stories I probably not forgot to talk about on this podcast. Yeah. But there's always going to be a part 2, 3, 4. Sure,
anytime.
And also fucking...
I like the in-studio shit too, by the way. It's nice.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice. Yeah. I enjoy this. You're sitting there relaxed. You know, you've got your fucking energy drink in front of you. Yep. Just talk and... Again, there's never this element of looking at a screen. I don't like that. That's why I don't do podcasts. I'm a sit-down guy.
I only do it out of necessity, not out of preference.
No.
Right?
Even being here today.
What?
I don't know what the fuck you meant by that.
No, I mean... my podcast is done through a screen out of necessity, right?
Yeah. I see you saying.
I wish I could get everyone together all the time, right? But I can't, so I do it through a screen because I have to.
But I think that's your style, though.
Yeah.
Right? But even if you threw in the future a sit-down podcast, I think that element has worked so well for you. Yeah. And I don't think also that a lot of these guys would be able to do that on a sit-down.
I wonder that too.
I don't think so. Everybody's in the creature comforts of their own home. Or the hotels or whatever the fuck they're at on the road. But when you do a sit-down thing, you already kind of, I don't know, you loosen up. And on the sense where it's like, I'm going to be jovial. It's like, oh man, I'm in a sofa. It's kind of like, I'm in my mum's or your friend's mum's house or something, right? And you have to fucking say the right things because you become more proper, right?
Listen, I think about this. Yeah. Because we've done a few lives and they're not as stupid as when we're at home.
You know your formula then. Even though I'm not trying to push you away from the coaches and stuff, but I think, you know, again, listen, I give my friends their fucking flowers. I keep saying this. You're the king of the podcast, man. You've done an incredible job of taking it from nothing to something, gone through the hardships and built something very impressive, which is now rolled on to Hostel, which is now rolled on to a gym, which is now rolled on to a multitude of different vehicles that you are now being able to purchase. I know you're a big car guy, and now you're a bike guy. And
I'm a bike guy now.
No, you're a bike guy now. But you've done it, though. Yeah. And the beauty of bodybuilding has aided your lifestyle. And now that whether you've taken the moment to sit down and think about it, it's now you are helping others aid their lifestyle to go on to do other things. It's just... evolution of life. You were the athlete, and now the owner who's passing back. Gaspari was the athlete, and now he's passing back. And now I am. I was the athlete, and now I'm an owner passing back as much as I can too. So I think we're both passionate about this spot and this space in bodybuilding, and we only want to see it grow. And I think our podcast, you know, given the element of professionalism that it's kind of somewhat has been lacking over the last number of years. So I'm proud of everything you've done, mate.
Thank you,
I'm honored to have you on the podcast.
Thank you, man.
And only one more thing to say. Fouad Abiad, Flex Lewis, out.